So in this video I want to talk about how to subtract fractions. Now, just as I mentioned in my video about adding fractions, there's also more than one way to subtract two fractions, and the way that most people are first taught how to do this is by first multiplying the numerators and denominators by some factor, so that they end up having the same denominator, and once they add the same denominator, then it was simply a case of subtracting. In this video, I'd like to talk about a somewhat faster method when it comes to subtracting fractions, and it's basically the same thing I did in my video about adding fractions just with a negative sign. So I've got two fractions, a over b and c over d, where a, b, c, and d are numbers, and I want to subtract them. I want to subtract c over d from a over b. So to do this, as before, when we were adding them, we simply cross multiply and find the difference. So what I'm going to do is I take the first number a, the numerator of the first fraction, and I multiply that by d, the denominator of the second fraction. Then I subtract the denominator of the first fraction b multiplied by the numerator of the second fraction c. So I've got ad minus bc. I've got this nice little cross multiplication thing going on. Then I divide the whole thing by bd, so the product of whatever's on the bottom. So that's how to subtract one fraction from another. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at 3 over 4 minus 2 over 5. So 3 over 4 minus 2 over 5. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first number, or the numerator of the first fraction, multiply the denominator of the second fraction. So that's 3 times 5. I'm now going to put a minus sign and take the denominator of the first fraction, that's 4, and multiply that by the numerator of the second, that's 2. And what do I get? Well, I get minus 4 times 2, as per my formula above. Now I've got to divide the whole thing. Now I've got to multiply whatever's on the bottom. So I've got 4 and 5. So we've got 4 times 5 on the bottom. So if we simplify this, well, 3 times 5 is 15. So that's 15. Minus 4 times 2. And 4 times 2 is 8. So that's 15 minus 8. All divided by 4 times 5, which happens to be 20. 15 minus 8 is 7. And we've still got divided by 20. And 7 and 20 are coprime, or they don't share a common factor. So this is in its simplest form. So 3/4 minus 2/5 is 7 over 20. Let's look at another example. Let's look at 5 over 4 minus 1 over 7. So just as before, we look at the number on the top left, that's 5, and we multiply that by the number on the bottom right. So in the corners, basically. And when we do this, we've got 5 times 7, then we put a minus sign, because we're subtracting, minus whatever's on the opposite corners here. So we've got 4 in the bottom left and 1 in the bottom right. So you've got 4 times 1. 5 times 7 minus 4 times 1. Then I divide the whole thing by the product of whatever's on the bottom. And 4 and 7 are the numbers on the bottom. So we've got 4 times 7. Now we've just got to simplify. Well, 5 times 7 is 35. Minus 4 times 1, or anything times 1 is just itself, and 4 times 1 is 4, so that's 4. And we divide that by 4 times 7. 4 times 7 is just 28. So now we've got 35 minus 4 on the numerator. 35 minus 4 is 31. And we divide by 28. And this is a fraction in its simplest form, because 31 and 28 have no common factors. They're coprime. So that's a quick way of subtracting fractions.